Right, welcome to another video. Mustang today, bright yellow, very loud, not just a colour, sounds mega as well. A few things on this one, got an oil and filter change to do. That's already draining, I've got that in, put an engine flush in it, ran it up, got it nice and hot, dumped that out, jacked it up, took the front wheels off because we're changing front shocks. One was advised on the MOT a couple of weeks ago for slightly leaking, but the customer wants two fitted. Obviously you do them in pairs, that's the correct way to do it. And we also have a TPMS fault that we need to look into. So let's crack on. I'll show you why we're changing them. So you can see in here that this shock is starting to leak a little bit. It's not bad, but it's not right. So new shock's going on there, or new shock going on there. That one's fine, it's not wet. It looks shiny, but it's just where I pulled the boot off, it's not actually leaking like the other one. So we'll get stuck into that. Like I said, the oil and filter is already draining. Not the nicest thing to do oil and filter on, because the oil filter location, you can do it from underneath, but what I always do is just pull the passenger side front wheel off and it's right there. So yeah, you got to take the wheel off, but it makes it really easy to get to then. Ford have thought about it. Nice little drip tray on the subframe there for the oil to run into. So that's all draining. So we'll start getting the shocks off and get the springs swapped over. We'll clean all the springs off so they're nice, and then we'll touch base again. Right, so shocks are off. Both are off, but we've only got one here, obviously. Old one, new one, genuine Ford. That's all we would fit. So you can see a bit better now that it's quite damp in there. So that's why we're changing them. A couple little things I do when we're taking them apart. On the top mount, I always mark one of the bolts and obviously reference to where that goes back in, because some of the top mounts, this one isn't, I don't believe, but these can be like cambered, so you always want to make sure you put them back the right way, and they're not always marked on them. So you want to make sure that's going back on where it came off. And if you look, when they come off, this is like a hub-centric bolt for adjusting the caster and camber of the wheel. So that's got to go back. What I do also is mark the bolt to a reference point on the shock. It doesn't stay there when it goes back, but it gives us a reference point to like a base setting, so we can put it all back together, put the wheels back on, put the gauges on, and then we can adjust it up from there. So you're not miles out, hopefully you'll be pretty close. Sometimes it'll be bang on. So there's the other one. You can see that that one isn't leaking, but like I said, should always be doing them in pairs. So we've got two to go on. So I'll get the spring swapped over and then we'll touch base again. Right, so little breakdown. Obviously all stripped apart. New shock ready to be built up. A couple little things in regards to when I'm doing the top mount nut that holds the spring and stuff on. That's obviously sat in there, so you can't get a spanner on it. It has got a hex on the top of the shock that you can hold with a 10mm, but you can't put a spanner on that, so proper shock tool is required. Don't be pulling up the boot and putting a set of mole grips on the shock, even though it's an old one and we're throwing it away. It's still not good practice. It can damage it. I know we're putting new ones on, but it's still not the point. We've still got to do it back up. Springs, these are different top to bottom. So you can, I don't know if you're going to pick up the top, the top coil is bigger than the bottom coil. But what I always do also before I take it apart is just put a pink mark on the top so we know that's the top and the spring's going back up on the correct way. I know that's not possible when you're putting new springs on, but we're not today, so that's what we do there. Yeah, so just use, that's the kit we've got. It doesn't have 10mm to go on there, but just use quarter drive ratchet and socket and an extension. And then with a kit, it's hollow inside, so you can put your 10mm down through it, which enables you to hold the shaft of the shock so it's not spinning. Don't be doing them up with a gun either. Really easy to snap the top off the shock, and then you've got a nightmare on your hands. So yeah, just use the correct tools, and makes life a lot easier, and nothing gets damaged. So we'll get the old spring, or the original spring, on the new shock, top mount on, and then get it bolted back in the car. Right, so we're all put back together. As you can see, I've cleaned the spring off the best I can. It's not new, so it's not going to come up like brand new. The shock's all bolted back on. That was the reference point I was on about earlier. So we can put that back to where it was. Obviously, you've got to transfer the mark from the old shock to the new shock, so we do that as accurately as we can. And then that just gives us a base setting to where it was before, so hopefully it shouldn't take too much adjustment to get it right. So yeah, there we are, all done. Just got obviously the wheels to go back on. That's all greased up, ready to go. I know I said about it before in other videos, but making sure our mating surfaces are clean. One, you don't know what you're talking up against. If it's all dirty and corroded, you're talking up against the corrosion, and then the corrosion moves or wears away, then you get a loose wheel. And going forward, getting the wheels off just makes it so much easier to get the wheels off. So that's that all done. Just got to put the oil filter and sump plug back in. Both new, obviously, new filter. A little bit of rubber grease on there. Same on the new sump plug, just a tiny bit of grease on the rubber seal. So yeah, get the oil filter back on, sump plug in, fill it up with oil, then we can fire it up and road test. Right, so there we go, all done. Doesn't look any different, as you can see. Yeah, new shocks fitted, oil and filter change done. That's all correct, the level set. I've put the new sump plug in, new oil filter on, under trays are back in, all the lights are reset inside. The TPMS fault, we think one of the sensors just dropped out. We've tested the sensors, they've tested fine, so we've just done like a learn process, reset all the tyre pressures, and that seems to be fine. The light's gone straight out on its own, as it should. So just got a road test now, and then ring the customer and say it's all done. So he should be happy with that. We've done a few things on this now. We've serviced it a few times, MOT'd it. I've done front disc and pads on it. So yeah, he's always been happy before, so he should be again. I'll just fire it up so you can hear it, because it's pretty, it is pretty leery. Over like that whilst it's on cold start, and then revs will drop down in a minute. I've had it running a few times, so it'll drop down pretty quickly. Yeah, when you give it a rev, it's pretty leery, as you can hear. So let's get it out, get it road tested, get it back to the customer. Don't forget, like, subscribe, bell notification button, comments in the box below. Any questions you got, don't hesitate to ask, and we'll see you on the next one.